Solvitur Ambulando, The Adventures of Steve and Dixie. June 15th, 1986, Sunday. The second day of walking across America. Snippets from my audio journal. My nerves come and go. I try to eat, but I just have no appetite. I'm irrationally nervous. It's part of the experience. My body aches quite a bit, especially my waist. That is where most of the weight is secured, so that I use my strongest muscles, my skinny legs, to carry the load. There's a new feeling of time. All there is to do is walk, look around, and think. I think I'm freaking out. And it's worse when we stop to take a break. I think I need a Valium, but I hate the idea of it. Sidenote. Let me clearly state that my nerves were more powerful than what the F am I doing? I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't just go home. And there was no one I could call. Mike and Karen were on their own adventure somewhere in America, and I hadn't yet told my family what I was doing. Now, I don't state this because I'm proud of this state of mind, but I want to be transparent, and I don't want to minimize the uneasiness I experienced. Oh, of course, there were moments my anxiety would pass, especially if I was distracted when talking to someone. Those conversations were like pep talks and kept me walking. But my unpleasant emotional state was a constant companion, looping in my mind, moment by moment, step by step, mile by mile, with nothing else to do but walk and feel, and occasionally talk. Later, a pickup truck stopped and asked if we wanted a lift. I didn't think of people asking me if we wanted a ride. I walked facing traffic on the left-hand side of the road. Thanks, but no thanks, I said. An interesting thought. How easy this could be to get to Seattle. But that's not really what I want. No matter any silly fears or physical hardship, I'm not ready to start accepting rides. At least not now. If I wanted a ride, I'd still be in the van Mike, Karen, and I traveled in before I gave it up for my backpack. Later. When we walk on the levee, the mound between the road and the river, Dixie is totally free, off leash. I love walking on the levee. When we're on the shoulder of the road, I have to keep a sharp eye on this dog. She's not very learned about cars. I've tried to walk with her on a leash, but I quickly discovered that there is no way that I'm going to walk Dixie across America on a leash. It's unrealistic with all this weight on my back, and not fun for me or her. Maybe at times she'll be on a leash, but it better be the exception. This man and this young German Shepherd do not walk at the same pace. She's just going to have to learn. She's ignorant, but obedient and willing to learn. I've already pointed out some dead rabbits and squirrels and deer and cats and explained to her that if she's not careful, that could just as easily be her laying there. It may seem silly to the passerby as they see me explain such things to a dog, but so far, it's working. Later. The mind's a very powerful thing. You have to be convinced in the mind, I said to Lewis. There are times when I've traveled when I'm scared and depressed and nervous, and those times you have to feel strong and need the mind to get you through. I was saying this more for my sake than for his. I needed to convince me more than he needed to understand this philosophy. I experienced these nerves when I was traveling in a van before arriving in New Orleans, and, well, it's been 10 times worse the last couple of days. I wish you luck on your trip, said this admirer. He was a shorter, older, chubbier, very bloodshot, bulging-eyed black man. It was about 2 o'clock when he hit the brakes on his bike to talk to the guy and the dog with backpacks. He was pretty drunk, and he stopped to check to see if what he saw was real. I told him of my plan to walk across America. Where you going now? I'm trying for Seattle. He implied with amazement. Yeah, it's far away, I added, I know. Well, if you need any food, see that building over there? That's a bar room, and you can get some food over there. I thought maybe this distraction would help my appetite. Lewis took me over. He rode his little red, beat up bike, and Dixie and I walked. I tied Dixie up in the shade and headed in. The place had all the windows covered and no lights on. I was blind until my eyes adjusted to the darkness from the intense sunlight I was leaving. Needless to say, I grabbed everyone's attention. Saying that I was a stranger is an understatement. These were all apparently poor, apparently drunk, black men. I was a hiker out in 90-degree heat, 90+% humidity, and I was white. And it didn't help when I asked about the food. The kitchen had been closed for years. Well, at least my uninformed friend Lewis was with me for support because clearly I did not belong. I wasn't exactly scared, but I felt uncomfortable for a bit. After a few minutes of uncertainty on everyone's part, someone finally offered me a glass of warm, iceless water. I was definitely out of place. In the interest of hospitality, we began to talk. I don't think they thought I was all there in the mind after I explained that Dixie and I were walking across America. And then I asked about the time saver market I had heard was a few miles up, and they couldn't believe I was going to walk to it. Lewis had ridden his bike there once, and it took him 4 hours. I was confused that they questioned my ability to walk up the road a few miles, but not my desire to walk to Seattle. I think my goal of walking from New Orleans to Seattle was so far from their comprehension that I don't think they could understand what I was really talking about. It was as if I was talking another language. Well, we all talked for a while, but it was the kind of confusing back and forth conversation of trying to talk to someone from another country and a different language, even though we were all Americans speaking English. After saying goodbye and back on the road, my first thought was that my time with these men was really just a waste of time. My visit was a nothing experience. But now I consider that perhaps it was an important experience. I need more time and experience to help me understand it, if there really is anything to understand. Side note: with other experiences and time, I do have a better, albeit incomplete, insight of hanging out with Lewis and his buddies in the bar beside the Mississippi River. For all we 330-ish million Americans have in common as Americans, about 240 million in 1986, this walking journey introduced me to fellow Americans with incredibly different life experiences than me, starting at conception. I began to understand how one, with profoundly different life experiences than another, could become a person who makes extremely different life choices, especially regarding religion and politics. Through meeting with such different people over incredibly poignant miles and years, I became less judgmental and more tolerant of differences between me and the people from my social circle that I grew up with, and people who were from the same country but a whole different world. Later, other thoughts over the 12 miles I covered today are as follows. We seem to be walking a lot of tiring miles, but according to my maps, we haven't done more than 10 or 12 miles a day. So much for the 20 or 30 I had figured. My concern for Dixie also slows us down. I'm not sure of her abilities. She's already developed a limp, and her black foot pads are very red and sore. Until next time, peace.